So how did you guys actually meet, all the band members in Moist? And at what point did you decide maybe we should start a band together?
So Mark and I met in 1986. So we were at Queens. We were both taking film, but we didn't know each other in first year until the end of first year, which is when we met. When we were, I think Mark was taking. He started off as an English major, and I think I started off as a drama major. And by the end of first year, we had both switched into film, and we met at that concert play performance musical thing that we did, and decided to form our first band there. And there was another guitar player in the band, a guy named Chris Hogan, and he had gone to school with Kevin. And so Kevin also was at Queens at the time, and Kevin had a band too. So we formed our band, which was called the VK Fan Club. Kevin had his band, which was called the Vanishing Waves, and his horrible student living house was right around the corner from our horrible student living house. So we got to know Kevin really well, and we would play in the same bars at the same time, and we were in battle of the bands against each other and that kind of thing. And we would go to parties at his house, and he'd come to parties at our house. And he was friends with David. So he and David knew each other from being teenagers and that kind of thing. And David's from Kingston as well. And I remember running into David. I remember David coming to a party that Mark and I had at our house. And I remember meeting him then. And I remember sort of people talking about, oh, this guy, David, great singer. It's why he's not in town. He was living in Vancouver at the time. And so Mark and I went through the process of having that band, and we got our degrees, and we moved to Toronto, and we sort of got another band going there. And after living in Toronto for a little while, actually, sorry, there's actually a better story here. I'm kind of glossing over. Have you got some time?
I have nothing but time. Go ahead.
Okay. So Mark stayed for a fifth year at Queens. I went to Toronto after my fourth year at Queens, and I got a job working in the film industry. And Mark came to visit me in Toronto. I was living in a warehouse at John and Adelaide Street, total like crazy artist's haven where you could rent space for $1 a square foot. And there was artists and painters and musicians, and there was all kinds of crazy things going on in this warehouse. And Mark came to visit me at Christmas, and he said to me, we should move to Vancouver and start a band. And I said, well, I've got this job, and I've got this stuff going on, that kind of thing. I don't really feel like music's my thing anymore. I'm kind of making headway in the film industry here. And he said, okay, that's fine. So Mark went back, and he carried on with completing his film studies. And he made a short film that he really loved, and he submitted it to all of the film festivals in Canada, basically. And I woke up sort of one day that April, and I thought to myself, I don't really like my job, and I don't really like the things I have going on here. What I really do want to do is whatever happened to that guy who wanted to be in a band. That's what I want to do. And I want to be in a band with Mark. So I called Mark and I told him, you know what, if you want to move to Vancouver and start a band, let's do that. And that was the day that Mark had found out that his short film had been turned down by every film festival in Canada. And it was a kind of a moment of the universe kind of coming together and sort of pointing a direction. So that's what we did. He moved to Toronto for a little while. We found a government job, which paid really well for us, that we worked together in an office working for the Ontario Waste Management Corporation, summarizing court transcripts. And we did that for a year, and then they agreed to lay us off, and we jumped in a van and we drove to Vancouver and started our dream. And while we were in Vancouver, we met up with, Mark and I had another band in Vancouver called Moist that we started when we got there. And that band, it just didn't, after playing with that band for about a year, it just didn't seem like it was going to go anywhere. So we kind of decided to end that band. And the day that we ended that band, we went to a birthday party for Kevin at his house, and David was there. And we started jamming with Kevin and David, and we liked what they did, and we liked David's voice. We liked the idea of keyboards, and presto, the next day we had a new band.
Man, so imagine if Mark doesn't ask you to start a band with him and move to Vancouver, and imagine if his movie didn't get turned down by everyone, and then imagine if you guys don't go to Kevin's party and jam.
Sometimes I feel like the universe is guiding things for sure. There's definitely so many possible things. And honestly, we'll get into more of them as we talk more about the career of the band, but there's been so many moments where I feel like we've been, kind of blessed, guided, whatever you want to say. But part of that too is because we never were ones to turn down the possibility that something might happen. And as my friend Jerry Finn would say, nothing ever comes out of staying inside. That's kind of words to live by. If you can always find an excuse to not do something, but if you decide to do something, if you decide to go to Kevin's party, even though you don't necessarily feel like going to Kevin's party, then that's where things happen, and that's where the whole thing happened.
You guys were hashtag blessed. I'm going to ask that question. You don't have to answer, but this Battle of the Bands, whose band was winning these Battle of the Bands between the different Moist members? You have the mic, so you can say anything you want.
Yeah, no,
they can't
honestly,
defend themselves.
Kevin's band, The Vanishing Waves, was amazing. They had Kevin as an incredible keyboard player, and he was totally crazy and freaky and wild. They had an incredible guitar player named Brian who sang like an angel and played awesome guitar. They had a super stable bass player named Brad, and they had a drummer named Bones who would do a drum solo standing up and going around the outside of the kit. And they smoked us for sure.
Yeah, any band with a drummer whose name is Bones is probably going to smoke you. That's a solid.
Yeah.
That's a solid stage name.
It's a solid handle for sure.
So you mentioned that even before you moved to Vancouver, you were hearing about this David Usher that was a great singer. What was it about David that made him stand out?
Oh, he just had a really, really beautiful voice, and I knew as well that he was a great songwriter and that kind of thing. And I don't know, it's just sort of something that, he had a look that was unique. He looked, he was beautiful and frightening at the same time. And he was a presence for sure. And we definitely noticed that when we were jamming that night. We had never heard him sing before that night at Kevin's party, but when he sang, it was just, there was a tone to his voice that was so appealing and so immediate. And we liked a lot of the same music too. And it was just very, the bond was instant.
How did you guys decide on the band name Moist? It sounds like you were using that name before the actual band Moist came together. And before you answer that, this year for April Fools, you guys posted a pretty funny post about the name Moist, if you want to share that as well.
Yeah, so I'll do that first. I have one of my colleagues in my other life, my life that's not musical. He's from Portugal, and he's about 15 years younger than me, and he's married to a Canadian girl. And when he told her that I was in the band, she was like, "Oh wow, I love that band when I was in high school or whatever." And so one day I was hanging out with him, and his wife called, and he said, "Oh yeah, no, I'm here with Jeff, from The Moist," and and she was like, "It's just Moist, Peter. It's just Moist." So that stuck in my head as being kind of funny because it's a second language thing, and he wasn't around. He had no idea the popularity of the band was not part of his world at all. And so I kind of always just thought it was funny. So we posted a thing at April Fools that we had after, years of suffering through this, having a band that's named after this word that over the course of the 30 years that we've been trading under has gone from being just a word to being something else entirely that we had no idea of that. And so we announced on April 1st that we were changing the band name to The Moist. And but the whole point of that exercise was that I also wrote there as well that for more information and to buy merch, click on the link, and the link went to Doctors Without Borders. So it was a way of trying to raise money for for what's going on in Ukraine and that kind of thing, by driving people to a charity website out of curiosity. And just judging by the comments we got on Facebook, it seemed like it actually may have raised some money. So
I remember seeing that post, and you read along and you think this is serious, right? And then you realize that it's April 1st and they got me. But
Yeah.
originally naming the band Moist, it had to do something. I remember U2. It's funny you mentioned you love U2. When they named the band, they thought, what is the shortest name that we can come up with that we can have the biggest on a poster? And you can't have anything really shorter than U2 that can take up an entire poster and really promote the band name. Is that, I heard that's one of the reasons why you
Oh,
you took such a short name.
absolutely. We wanted a band that was. I mean, this is also the time of uh, Nirvana, Blur, uh, Pulp. There's like
One
tons
word.
of one word names that were short and concise and looked good on a sticker, and that's what we wanted. And we didn't want the name. Um, we didn't want to, uh, to have a. There's no need for a definite adjective or a definite pronoun there, and the whole thing. And we just wanted it to be a single word. And yeah, we didn't really think that much of it, but there is actually a story, um, which I've told before. It's sort of a story that we probably shouldn't have ever told, but I've started telling it, and I'm going to tell it to you
Here
now.
we go.
Which is that when Mark and I moved to Vancouver, we moved there with Mark's girlfriend at the time, and she was also a singer, and she answered an ad for a all girl band in Vancouver, and through her and those people, we met this guy who was kind of involved with that band, and the band was called She. So they actually had a band name that was good. But he was kind of he liked the idea of introducing musicians to each other and that kind of thing. And he was an interesting guy. And he told us when we were out for drinks one night that he really wanted to put together an all girl band and call it Moist. And we thought that was terrible. We thought that was just like the worst idea we'd ever heard. But I remember about a month later, Mark and I were sitting on the couch of the house we'd rented in Vancouver, and we had our band up and running, and we had a gig booked. And Mark looked at me and said, Moist is a terrible name for an all girl band. And I was like, yeah, man, I know. And he said, but for an all guy band, it's not bad at all. And so that's kind of where it's stuck. And I mean, it's been a moniker that's been noticed, and it certainly got attention. And we had people sticking Moist stickers everywhere when we were first touring in the van and that kind of thing. So I think the name helped, and for a while I think the name disappeared. Like it was like names do. Like you don't think about REM as being Rapid Eye Movement. You don't think about U2 as being you don't think about these things. And I think that for a while when the band was at the height of its popularity, I think that the name became just the name of the band. And it's only in the years after that the word has kind of taken on, independently of the band, has taken on a kind of a life of its own.
So in preparation for all these interviews, what I like to do is infiltrate the Facebook fan groups for all these bands to be amongst the fans, see what questions they would ask if they could sit down with their favorite members. And I had a lot of fun searching Moist groups on Facebook. So let me share with you my favorite Moist groups on Facebook. I think you'll enjoy this. So Moist memes for dusty bitches. I hate the word moist is another group. Moist memories, a group where you can only say moist. That's the name of the group. Moist things, super moist, moist criminology. And here's my favorite. I think you'll like this. The name of the group is Extra Super Rare Ultra Moist Banana Seeker.
Yeah, that's all terrible for sure. Yeah,
so that's the rabbit hole I went down in preparation for this.
Yeah, this is where we are sitting now with the name of our band for sure. But we're not going to change it. We are who we are, and fortunately, the fans have come along with us this long, and I don't think that they have given up on the band just because the word has become a meme.
It reminds me of the band Anthrax back during the Anthrax scare, that they said, look, our name, we've had it for 20 plus years. It has nothing to do with the terrorist attacks now. Please, don't associate it. We're not going to change our name. So I remember they went through something like that.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's far worse. So
Yeah, yeah. So we're up at the point you get the band together, you name the band, and now there's a cassette that comes into play. So you guys have a demo cassette. It sounds like it was recorded for like $500 over a 48-hour period. And can you dive into a little bit about that cassette? And Sam the Record Man has something to do with the success of that cassette. Is that true?
Well, I think we were Sam the Record Man in Toronto was very kind to stock it for sure. And but part of that too is that we were very aggressive right out of the gate with the whole thing. We had the cassette and we recorded it, like you said, in 2 days. So we formed the band in September of 1992, at Kevin's birthday, and we went immediately into writing mode, and we wrote 9 songs that we loved, and we recorded them. We did our first gig in January of 1993, and then went into the recording studio the weekend later. A friend of ours worked in a jingle studio, a guy named Kevin Hamilton, who's an amazing producer, and he was a friend of David's, and he managed to swing this deal where we could go into the recording studio for all the money we had, which is $500. And what we got out of that recording session was Push, Believe Me, This Shrieking Love, Picture Elvis, Low, Low, Low. 5 of the songs that were on Silver were recorded at that time, plus Oh, Break Her Down, another one too. So we knew that we had something that was really good, and even in just in the cassette form. So we were playing shows like crazy, and we immediately made plans to find a way to get a van and start touring. And we did that, and we found a booking agent who was willing to book us, and we quit our jobs, we gave up our apartments, we went all in on the whole thing, and we were selling the cassette out of the van. We were selling it at shows, and when we got to Toronto, we dropped it off to Sam the Record Man, and actually Sam the Record Man in Vancouver too, and yeah, and it started charting there. So it was very cool, and we kept at it. We had a feeling that we were potentially onto something. The success was very small at that time. It wasn't like success of like the Bare Naked Ladies tape or anything like that, but it was we felt like we were making headway for sure.